The red sun of Kepler 442b was setting behind the Rocky Mountains when Commander Tail received the message he had been waiting for 3 long months. His troops had finally captured a human soldier alive. This was no ordinary victory because humans were proving to be the most puzzling enemy the Galactic Union had ever faced. For 3 years, the war between Earth and the mighty Galactic Union had raged across dozens of star systems. The Union represented over 200 alien species each, more advanced than humanity. Each species had natural advantages that humans completely lacked. The Vorthans, like Commander Tail, had armored skin that could stop plasma bolts. The Zelkins could breathe poison gas and had acid for blood. The Thraxians were 8 feet tall with claws that could tear through steel. Humans had none of these gifts. They were small, soft creatures with pink skin that looked like it would tear if you touched it too hard. They had no natural weapons, no armor, and they died easily from things that would barely scratch other species. Yet somehow these weak little beings kept winning battles that should have been impossible. Commander Tail stood 7 feet tall with blue-gray skin covered in natural armor plates. His 4 arms ended in hands that could crush steel. His species had conquered 47 worlds before they even met humans. Now, after 3 years of fighting these strange creatures, he was starting to doubt everything he knew about warfare. The human prisoner was being brought to his flagship, the greatest warship in the Vorthon fleet. The ship was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. Its shields could withstand the explosion of a star, and its weapons could crack a moon in half. No enemy had ever escaped from this vessel. Tail walked through the ship's corridors toward the docking bay where his soldiers would deliver the prisoner. Other crew members stopped their work to watch him pass. Everyone on the ship knew how important this capture was. They had been trying to take a human alive for months, but these creatures seemed to prefer death over surrender. When the shuttle arrived, Tail was surprised by what he saw. The human prisoner was younger than he expected, maybe 25 Earth years old. He had dark hair and calm brown eyes that seemed to see everything around him. His uniform was torn and dirty from the battle, but he sat straight and alert, like a soldier who was still on duty. The prisoner's name was Kim Woo, according to the identification tags on his uniform. He was a sergeant in something called the Earth Defense Force, which apparently was the human military organization. Tail had studied human military structure for years, but he still found their simple ranking system confusing. What puzzled Tail most was the humans' behavior. Most prisoners would be terrified, angry, or trying to escape. But Kim Woo looked around the shuttle bay with what seemed like curiosity. He examined the alien technology, the ship design, and even the soldiers guarding him with the interest of a tourist visiting a museum. When the energy restraints were placed on his wrists, Kim Woo tested them briefly, then nodded as if he approved of their construction. He did not struggle or complain. Instead, he looked directly at Commander Tail and said something that would confuse the alien for hours afterward. "Do you have any coffee?" The question was so unexpected that Tail actually stepped backward. His translator device worked perfectly, so he knew he had heard correctly. But why would a prisoner ask about a human beverage? No captured enemy had ever made such a casual request before. The guards pushed Kim Woo forward, and the small group began walking toward the prison section of the ship. Tail noticed that the human was paying close attention to everything they passed. He looked at the corridor design, the door mechanisms, the security cameras, and even the ventilation systems. Other alien crew members stopped working to stare at the human. They had heard stories about human strength and cunning in battle, but Kim Woo looked so ordinary. He was shorter than most of them, and his skin looked fragile compared to their natural armor. Yet something about his calm confidence made them nervous. As they walked, Kim Woo began humming a tune that none of the aliens recognized. The melody was complex and cheerful, completely inappropriate for someone who had just been captured by their worst enemies. The sound echoed through the metal corridors and somehow made the massive warship feel less threatening. Tail tried to understand what he was seeing. Every prisoner he had ever taken showed fear, anger, or despair in their first few minutes of captivity. These emotions were universal among all intelligent species, but this human seemed almost relaxed, as if being captured was just another interesting experience. When they reached the maximum security section, Kim Woo stopped humming and looked around. With obvious appreciation, the prison area represented the finest Vorthon engineering. Each cell was designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. The walls were made of pure neutronium, the hardest substance known to science. The cell they had prepared for Kim Woo was the most secure on the entire ship. It had held warlords from a dozen different species, and none had ever escaped. The neutronium walls were 3 feet thick, and the door required both biometric identification and complex mathematical codes to open. Kim Woo examined the cell entrance with the same curiosity he had shown everything else. He ran his fingers along the smooth metal surface and nodded with what looked like professional approval. "Your engineers know their stuff," he said to Tile. "This neutronium work is really impressive." Tal was completely confused by the compliment. No prisoner had ever praised their captor's construction techniques before. What kind of species produced soldiers who could appreciate enemy technology even while being imprisoned? The cell interior was designed to break the spirit of any captured enemy. The walls were smooth and featureless, with no handholds or weaknesses. The lighting was harsh and disorienting, changing colors randomly to prevent sleep. The temperature shifted constantly from uncomfortably hot to freezing cold. Most prisoners would begin showing signs of stress within minutes of being locked inside. The psychological pressure was calculated to make even the strongest warriors crack and reveal their secrets. But Kim Woo settled onto the metal bench that served as a bed and looked around with satisfaction. "You will remain here until you agree to tell us about human military strategies," Tael announced through the speaker system. "This cell has held the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. None have escaped." Through the security cameras, Tael watched Kim Woo stretch his arms above his head and yawn as if he were preparing for a comfortable nap. The human seemed completely unbothered by his situation, which was impossible according to everything Tael knew about prisoner psychology. Then Kim Woo did something that made every alien watching the security feeds exchange confused glances. He began humming again. But this time the tune was different. It was louder, more complex, and somehow cheerful in a way that seemed to mock their entire security system. The humming grew stronger and more confident, echoing through the ship's communication system. Kim Woo was not just making noise. He seemed to be celebrating something, as if his capture was exactly what he had been hoping for. Tails stared at the security monitors and realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare was about to change. This human was not behaving like a defeated prisoner. He was acting like someone whose plan was proceeding perfectly. The sound of Kim Woo's humming filled the massive warship, carrying with it the promise that humanity was about to teach the Galactic Union a lesson they would never forget. 10 minutes had passed since Kim Woo was locked in the maximum security cell, and his humming had grown so loud that it could be heard through the entire ship. The cheerful melody echoed through corridors and reached every deck, making alien crew members stop their work to listen in confusion. Lieutenant Zara stood beside Commander Tail, watching the security monitors with growing unease. In her 15 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. The human prisoner was not just humming anymore. He was laughing, and the sound was getting stronger every minute. The laughter was not the desperate, hysterical noise that broken prisoners sometimes made. This was genuine amusement, as if Kim Woo had discovered the funniest joke in the galaxy. He would examine different parts of his cell, shake his head with delight, and then laugh even harder. Sir Zara said to Commander Tail, "Perhaps we should run another diagnostic scan on the cell. The human's behavior is very unusual, Tail. agreed and ordered a complete systems check of the maximum security prison. Every sensor showed perfect readings. The neutronium walls were solid and undamaged. The electronic locks were functioning normally. The environmental controls were working, exactly as designed. The cell was as secure as the day it was built. But Kim Woo's laughter kept growing louder. The human had discovered something about his situation that filled him with joy. He moved around the small cell like a tourist exploring, a fascinating museum. He touched the walls, examined the door, and even tested the air circulation system. But instead of looking for escape routes, he seemed to be appreciating the engineering. What could possibly be funny about being trapped in our most secure prison, Tail muttered, while staring at the security feed. Kim Woo seemed to hear the question through the speakers because he looked directly at the camera and winked. "Oh, Commander," he said in perfect Galactic standard, "you really don't know anything about humans?" "Do you?" The casual way the human addressed him shocked Tile. No prisoner had ever spoken so informally to a Vorthon commander. Kim Woo was treating this like a friendly conversation rather than an interrogation. The lack of fear or respect was completely alien to everything Tile understood about military protocol. The human stood up and began examining his cell more carefully. He ran his hands along the joints where walls met the floor, studied the door's locking mechanism, and investigated every detail of the construction. But his exploration was not frantic or desperate. Instead, he moved with the calm confidence of an expert. Evaluating quality workmanship, "Your people built this cell thinking like Vorthans," Kim Woo explained while continuing his inspection. "You made it strong enough to hold Vorthan prisoners or Zelkan prisoners or even Thraxian prisoners, but you forgot something very important." Tail leaned closer to the monitor. "What did we forget?" "Human, Kim." Woo's grin became even wider. "You forgot that humans aren't like other species. We don't think like you do. We don't approach problems the same way. And most importantly, we have been dealing with locked doors and barriers for our entire evolutionary history." The human sat back down on the metal bench and began removing his military boots. Tile watched in confusion as Kim Woo carefully examined the soles and heels of his standard Earth Defense Force footwear. What could possibly be hidden in ordinary military boots? "You see," Commander Kim Woo continued in a conversational tone, "humans have been escaping from things since we lived in caves. We have broken out of every kind of prison our own species could design. We have escaped from burning, buildings, sinking ships, collapsed mines, and locked rooms that were supposed to be impossible to leave." Lieutenant Zara checked the security readings again. Everything was still showing normal, but something about the human's confidence was making her very nervous. "Sir, should we increase security measures or flood the cell with sleeping gas?" Before Tail could answer, Kim Woo pulled something small and metallic from the heel of his boot. The object was barely visible on the security cameras, but it gleamed with a light that made every Vorthon in the room suddenly feel very uncomfortable. "Is that?" Zara whispered. Neutronium Tile finished, his voice filled with disbelief. The small piece of metal in Kim Woo's hand was no bigger than a coin, but its presence changed everything about their situation. The human was holding a fragment of the same material used to build his supposedly escape-proof prison. "Human military engineers are quite clever," Kim Woo said, speaking to the camera as if he were giving a lecture. "When we first encountered your species and learned about neutronium, we were impressed. It's incredibly strong, nearly indestructible, and makes excellent prison walls." Tail felt his four hearts racing. "How did you get neutronium? Past our scanners?" he demanded. Kim Woo chuckled again. "That's the beautiful thing about human creativity, Commander. Your scanners look for weapons, explosives, and communication devices. They don't look for materials that match the composition of the prison cell itself. This little piece has been in my boot heel for 6 months, just waiting for the right moment." The human began working with the neutronium fragment, but not in any way the aliens expected. Instead of trying to cut through walls or damage locks, He was doing something far more subtle and frightening. He was reshaping the supposedly indestructible metal with nothing but his bare hands. You built this cell to contain prisoners who would try to break out using brute force, Kim. Wu explained while he worked. Vorthans would ram the walls with their armored heads. Zelkans would try to melt the locks with their acid secretions. Thraxians would attempt to tear the door apart with their claws. Lieutenant Zara was frantically running new scans on the cell, but everything still showed normal readings. Whatever the human was doing was not registering on their most advanced instruments. Sir, I strongly recommend we flood the cell with sleeping gas and retrieve the prisoner. Immediately, Tail considered the option, but his military pride stopped him. No prisoner had ever escaped from that cell, and he was not about to let some primitive human be the first to continue monitoring. If he actually manages to damage anything, we will act, Kim. Wu seemed to overhear their conversation because he laughed even louder. Damage something. Oh, Commander, you still don't understand. Humans don't break things when we can simply rearrange them. The neutronium fragment in Kim Wu's hands was changing shape under his touch. The aliens watched in amazement as the metal became flexible and malleable. He was not applying heat or acid or any visible force. He was simply manipulating the molecular structure through some method they could not detect or understand. Impossible. Zara breathed. Neutronium cannot be reshaped without industrial-grade equipment. That's what every species believes, Kim Wu replied cheerfully. But humans have been working with metals since we discovered fire. We understand them in ways that other species don't. We know their weaknesses, their properties, and most importantly, we know how to make them do exactly what we want. The fragment was growing longer and thinner, taking on the shape of a specialized tool. Kim Wu tested its flexibility and strength, then nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. Now let me show you the real problem with your supposedly escape-proof cell. He approached the door and began working on something the cameras could not clearly see. But instead of trying to break or bypass the obvious security systems, he was using his improvised tool to access something else entirely. Every security system has a weakness, Kim Wu explained while he worked. Usually it's not in the locks or the walls or the power supply. The weakness is always in the thing that every designer forgets about because it seems so harmless and unimportant. Commander Tail watched the security feeds with growing alarm. The cell's integrity was still perfect. The locks were still secure and all systems were functioning normally, but somehow Kim Wu was succeeding at something that should have been completely impossible. "What are you doing?" Tael demanded. Kim Wu looked up at the camera with a grin that would haunt the commander's dreams for years to come. "I am opening the door, of course, but not by breaking your locks or cutting through your walls. I'm using the one thing that every prison designer in the galaxy has forgotten about, which is the emergency release system." The emergency release system was a safety feature that every Vorthan engineer took for granted. It was designed to open all cell doors in case of fire hull breach or other ship-wide disasters. The system was hidden behind panels that could only be accessed with proper authorization codes and biometric confirmation from senior officers. At least that was what the Vorthans believed. Kim Wu's improvised neutronium tool slipped into a nearly invisible seam in the wall that the security cameras could not detect. With practiced precision, he manipulated internal mechanisms that the cell's designers had assumed would remain forever inaccessible to any prisoner. "Human fingers are remarkably dexterous," Kim Wu explained in a conversational tone. While he worked, "We have been using tools for millions of years. We can manipulate objects in ways that species with claws or tentacles simply cannot imagine." Commander Tile was now standing directly in front of the security monitors, his scaled hands pressed against the display screens. "This is impossible. The emergency system requires command-level authorization from Vorthon command officers," Kim Wu corrected. "But what happens when a human who has spent 3 years studying your Technology gains access to that system. What happens when that human has memorized the biometric patterns of every senior officer on this ship? Lieutenant Zara's eyes widened with sudden understanding. The captured data files from the human outpost. Raids. He has been collecting our security information for months. Not just collecting, Kim Woo said with obvious pride. Analyzing, understanding, and preparing to use it. Did you really think humans would fight a war without learning everything possible? About enemy systems. Every battle, every raid, every prisoner exchange has been a learning opportunity. The neutronium tool in Kim Woo's hands had become something that looked almost like a key, but far more complex. It was interfacing with the emergency release mechanism in ways that bypassed every security protocol the Vorthons had installed. The human was not breaking their system. He was convincing it that he was authorized to use it even if you activate the emergency system. Tyel said desperately, "You will still be trapped on our ship surrounded by thousands of armed soldiers. There is nowhere for you to run." Kim Woo paused in his work to look directly at the camera. His expression was no longer amused. Instead, it showed the cold calculation of a professional soldier who had been planning this moment for a very long time. "Commander," he said quietly, "do you know what humans call a situation where they are surrounded by enemies with no apparent way to escape?" Tell did not answer because he was afraid of what he might hear. "We call it a target-rich environment." The emergency release system activated with a soft chime that echoed through the ship's corridors. Red warning lights began flashing throughout the vessel as the cell's door. Locks disengaged one by one. Tail heard the heavy neutronium barriers retracting into the walls, their mechanical whining filling the security station with the sound of expensive failure. Kim Woo stood up, stretched his arms above his head, and walked calmly toward the opening door. He moved with the confident stride of someone who knew exactly where he was going and what he planned to do next. He paused at the threshold to look back at the camera. One final time. "Thank you for the accommodations. Commander, the cell was very well built. I particularly enjoyed the challenge of the neutronium construction. Your engineers should be proud of their work alert. All security teams." Tyel barked at Lieutenant Zara. "Full combat readiness, the human prisoner has escaped containment." But Kim Woo is already gone, disappearing into the ship's corridors with the easy confidence of someone who had studied the layout for months. The human was not running or hiding. Instead, he walked openly through the passages, as if he belonged there. Sir Zara said, her voice tight with concern. "If he has been studying our ship systems for 3 years, then he knows our layout better than some of our own crew members. Then he knows our layout better than some of our own crew." Members' Tail finished grimly, "Sound general quarters. This is not just an escape attempt. This is the beginning of something much worse." Throughout the massive warship, alarm klaxons began wailing as thousands of crew members prepared for what they assumed would be a desperate hunt for a single escaped prisoner. None of them realized that Kim Woo had never intended to simply escape from their ship. He had come here to send a message to the entire Galactic Union. The first security checkpoint Kim Woo encountered was guarded by 2 young Vorthan soldiers who had never seen a human before. They raised their weapons when they spotted him, but hesitated when they saw his calm demeanor. "Stop, human prisoner." One of them called out, "Return to the detention area immediately." Kim Woo smiled and continued walking toward them. "Do you know how long humans have been fighting wars?" he asked conversationally. The guards looked confused by the question and did not answer. "Thousands of years," Kim Woo continued. "We have been perfecting the art of combat since before your species discovered fire. We have fought with sticks and stones, bronze and iron gunpowder, and nuclear weapons. Every generation of humans has learned from the wars that came before." The first guard fired a warning shot that scorched the wall beside Kim Woo's head. But the human did not even flinch. Instead, he moved with sudden explosive speed that caught both aliens completely off guard. Human combat techniques were unlike anything. The Vorthans had ever encountered Kim Woo did not try to overpower his opponents with brute strength. Instead, he used their own momentum against them, striking precise nerve clusters that human intelligence had identified as Vorthan weak points within seconds. Both guards were unconscious on the floor, and Kim Woo had claimed their weapons. He examined the plasma rifles with professional interest, then continued on his way toward the ship's communications center. More security teams began converging on his location, but Kim Woo seemed to know exactly where they would come from. He used maintenance shafts, ventilation systems, and service corridors that were not marked on standard ship diagrams. The human moved through the vessel like someone who had memorized every possible route. Every time alien soldiers tried to corner him, Kim Woo demonstrated combat skills that defied their understanding. He fought like no species they had ever encountered, using tactics that were unpredictable, adaptive, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. The thing about studying your enemies, Kim Woo explained to a security camera as he disabled another patrol, is that you learn all their weaknesses. Every species has patterns, behaviors, and limitations that they do not even realize. Commander Tyel watched the security feeds with growing horror as his elite soldiers were systematically defeated by a single human. The tactics Kim Woo used were not in any military database. They were techniques that seemed to have been developed specifically for fighting Galactic Union forces. Sir Lieutenant Zara reported from her console he is not heading for the escape pods or shuttle bays. He is moving directly toward the main communication array. Why would he want to access our communications? Tail demanded. The answer came when Kim Woo reached the communications center and began working on the control systems, using techniques that combined his knowledge of Vorthan technology with human engineering principles. He quickly bypassed security locks and gained access to the ship's long-range transmitters. Within minutes, Kim Woo had accomplished something that should have been impossible. He had gained complete control of the fleet's military communication network. Every ship, every base, every command center in the Galactic Union was now connected to a system controlled by a single escaped human prisoner. Attention Galactic Union fleet, Kim Woo's voice suddenly echoed throughout every vessel in the sector. 3 years you have underestimated human capabilities. You have assumed that because we lack natural armor claws or acid glands, we must be weak primitives who would eventually surrender. The communication channel remained silent, except for Kim Woo's voice. Even the most senior military commanders in the fleet were listening to what this escaped prisoner had to say. Today I escaped from your most secure prison in less than 10 minutes. I defeated your elite soldiers using knowledge and tactics you did not know existed. I gained control of your most advanced communication systems using tools I created from materials you provided. Kim Woo paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. I want you to understand something very clearly. This was not luck. This was not desperation. This was a carefully planned demonstration. Every human soldier you have captured has been studying you, learning from you, and preparing for the day when we would show you what we are really capable of accomplishing. Kim Woo's voice continued broadcasting across the Galactic Union fleet, but something in his tone was changing. The professional military bearing was giving way to something that confused every alien listening. His voice was filled with genuine amusement, as if he had discovered the most entertaining joke in the universe. The funniest part about this entire war, he said, and his laughter began echoing through communication systems on thousands of ships, is that you still do not understand what you are really fighting. Commander Tyel was frantically trying to regain control of his ship's communication array, but every system showed that the human had somehow locked them out of their own equipment. The technical skill required for such a feat should have been impossible for any individual regardless of their species' advanced technology. You think humans are just another primitive species that you can defeat with superior technology and standard military tactics? Kim Woo continued his laughter, growing louder and more confident. But we are not like the other species you have conquered over the centuries. We are problem solvers. We are innovators. And most importantly, we are survivors who turn every disadvantage into a strategic advantage. On the security feeds, Commander Tell could see Kim Woo sitting comfortably in the communications center, completely relaxed despite being surrounded by an entire fleet of enemy warships. The human was actually enjoying himself, as if this dangerous situation was the most fun he had experienced in years. "Do you want to know why I am laughing?" Kim Woo asked, as if he could sense the confusion his behavior was causing throughout the Union fleet. "I am laughing because you put me in a cage, thinking it would contain me. But you did not just capture one human soldier. You gave one human soldier unrestricted access to study your most advanced prison technology, your security systems, and your military procedures for an extended period." The Phi laughter was becoming strangely infectious. Despite themselves, some of the younger crew members on Tail's ship were beginning to smile. There was something about human joy that seemed to transcend species barriers and affect even hostile aliens. And now Kim Woo announced cheerfully, "I am going to show you exactly what humans do with the information we gather during our supposed captivity." Every screen throughout the Union fleet suddenly displayed detailed technical schematics, security protocols, and comprehensive vulnerability assessments. In the span of 3 years, captured human soldiers had compiled a complete analysis of Galactic Union military technology, identifying critical weaknesses that the aliens themselves had never recognized or considered. "These files are being transmitted to every human military unit in the galaxy," Kim Woo explained with obvious satisfaction. "Your own communication systems, which I now control completely, are delivering complete tactical information directly to your enemies. Isn't that absolutely hilarious?" Commander Tail stared at the flood of classified data appearing on his screens and realized with growing horror that the war had just changed completely. Every strategic advantage the Union had possessed was being systematically dismantled by intelligence gathered from their own prisoners. The data included detailed ship schematics showing structural weak points that could be exploited in battle, weapon system specifications that revealed how to disable Union armament security protocols that would allow human forces to infiltrate alien bases, and most damaging of all, complete psychological profiles of every major alien species that explained exactly how to defeat them in combat. But wait, Kim Woo said, his laughter reaching almost hysterical levels. "It gets even funnier than you can possibly imagine." New information began appearing on the displays: ship locations, troop deployments, supply line schedules, and command structure details. The humans had not just been studying technology during their captivity. They had been methodically mapping the entire Union military infrastructure with incredible precision. Every human you captured was actually an intelligence-gathering operation. Kim Woo revealed with delight. "We have been deliberately allowing you to take our soldiers prisoner because we knew they would learn more about your capabilities in your jails than our spies could discover in years of dangerous covert operations." Communication channel filled with the sound of Kim Woo's delighted laughter as the true scope of human planning became clear to their enemies. The Union fleet had unknowingly been educating their opponents, providing them with detailed knowledge of every military secret they possessed. Lieutenant Zara stared at her displays in shock. "Sir, the humans have complete information about our fleet movements, our supply chains, our command codes, and even our emergency protocols. They know everything about us." More than that, Tal realized with growing dread. They have been planning this revelation for years. Every captured human was part of a coordinated intelligence operation. We have been fighting a war while our enemies were attending school. "Thank you, Commander Tal," Kim Woo said somehow, knowing exactly who was listening to him. "Thank you for capturing me. Thank you for putting me in your supposedly inescapable cage. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to demonstrate that humans do not just escape from prisons." He paused for maximum dramatic effect while his laughter echoed across the galaxy. "We turn them into classrooms where we learn everything we need to know about our enemies." The implications of this revelation hit every Union commander simultaneously. Their most secure facilities had been compromised. Their classified technologies had been studied and analyzed. Their military strategies had been observed and countered. Everything they thought they knew about this. War was wrong. Kim Woo continued speaking, but now his voice carried the authority of someone delivering a formal military briefing. For 3 years you have been wondering how humans keep winning battles against superior forces. Now you know the answer. We do not fight the war. You think you are fighting. We fight the war. We choose to fight. Using information, you gave us yourselves. The humans stood up from the communication console and began walking toward the ship's docking bay, where escape shuttles were located. But he was not running or hiding. Instead, he moved with the casual confidence of someone who had already achieved complete victory. Every Union ship in the sector is now receiving updated tactical information about human capabilities, Kim Woo announced cheerfully. Your own crews are learning that everything they believed about human military strength was carefully designed misinformation. We wanted you to underestimate us. Commander Tile realized that Kim Woo was not trying to escape in desperation. The human had accomplished his mission perfectly. He had demonstrated that humans could break out of any prison defeat, any security system, and turn any disadvantage into a strategic victory. The laughter that followed was heard on every Union ship in the sector. It was a sound of pure human joy that would be remembered long after the war ended. It was the laughter of a species that had turned their greatest apparent weakness into their most powerful weapon. It was the laughter of victory achieved through intelligence preparation and the uniquely human ability to find humor in even the most impossible situations. Kim Woo walked toward his escape route still laughing, leaving behind a galaxy that would never underestimate humanity again. Kim Woo moved through the Vorten ship's corridors with the confident stride of someone following a perfectly memorized map. His 3 years of intelligence gathering had not just taught him about security systems and emergency protocols. He had learned the complete ship layout, crew rotation schedules, and most importantly, the exact location of every critical system aboard the massive vessel. The escape shuttle bay was exactly where his mental map indicated it would be, but Kim Woo was not heading there to flee the ship. Instead, he had one final demonstration to complete before his mission would be truly finished. He needed to show the Galactic Union that human planning went far deeper than they could possibly imagine. The first major security team he encountered was a squad of 8 Vorthon elite guards, each wearing full combat armor and carrying the most advanced weapons in their arsenal. They had been specially trained to hunt down escaped prisoners, and they moved with deadly precision through the ship's passages. When they spotted Kim Woo at the intersection of 2 main corridors, they immediately formed a tactical formation that should have trapped any fleeing enemy. The squad leader raised his weapon and activated his armor's external speakers. "Halt, human prisoner," he commanded in a voice designed to intimidate. "Return to detention immediately, or we will use maximum force to stop you, Kim." Woo stopped walking but did not raise his hands in surrender. Instead, he smiled, with the same calm amusement that had confused his captors from the very beginning. "You know, that is exactly the response I was hoping for," he said cheerfully. Before the aliens could properly react, Kim Woo moved with the explosive speed that human soldiers had perfected through years of fighting larger, stronger opponents. He did not try to outrun the guards or hide from their weapons. Instead, he did something that violated every principle of military tactics they understood. He attacked directly toward them. This unexpected maneuver caught the elite squad completely off guard. Their training had prepared them for prisoners who would try to escape or take cover, but not for someone who would charge straight into superior firepower with apparent confidence. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years," Kim Woo called out, while dodging plasma bolts that scorched the corridor walls. "We have learned that the best way to defeat superior technology is to make it work against itself." Squad leader tried to coordinate his team's response. But Kim Woo was using movement patterns that defied their understanding. The human seemed to know exactly where each shot would go before the aliens fired their weapons. He flowed between plasma, bolts like he could predict the future. Within moments, Kim Woo had reached the first guard and struck him precisely in the nerve cluster at the base of his armored neck. The Vorthon dropped unconsciously, and Kim Woo claimed his plasma rifle in one smooth motion. The thing about studying your enemies, Kim Woo explained while using the captured weapon to provide covering fire, is that you learn all their weaknesses. Every species has vulnerabilities that they do not even realize exist. The remaining guards tried to use standard tactical formations, but Kim Woo was not fighting like any opponent they had trained against. He moved like water flowing around obstacles appearing where they did not expect him and striking from angles that should have been impossible. Human combat techniques had been developed through millions of years of surviving against larger predators and hostile environments. Every movement was efficient. Every strike was precisely targeted, and every tactic was designed to turn enemy advantages into weaknesses. The squad of elite Vorthon guards was unconscious on the corridor floor within 3 minutes, and Kim Woo had acquired military-grade equipment that would serve his final purpose. He continued toward his real destination. Leaving the defeated soldiers behind him, Commander Tael watched the security feeds with complete disbelief. How did one human defeat 8 of our best-trained warriors in full combat armor? Sir Lieutenant Zara reported from her monitoring station. He is still not heading for escape routes. His movement pattern suggests he is going toward the primary data core. The primary data core contained every piece of information stored aboard the massive warship, including detailed records of Union military operations, classified research data, and most importantly, communication logs that revealed the locations and plans of every Union fleet in the galaxy. Kim Woo reached the heavily secured data center and began working on the access controls with techniques that combined his knowledge of Vorthon technology with human problem-solving methods. The security systems were designed to prevent unauthorized access, but they were not prepared for someone who understood both human creativity and alien engineering. Within minutes, he had gained complete access to the ship's central computer systems. Every file, every database, every classified document was now available to him. But Kim Woo was not interested in stealing information. He already had everything he needed. Instead, he began uploading new data into the Union communication network. Attention all Galactic Union forces. Kim Woo's voice echoed through every ship base and outpost in their territory. This is Sergeant Kim Woo of the Earth, Defense Force. Transmitting from your own flagship, I have an important message that every species in your alliance needs to hear. The communication channels fell silent as millions of alien soldiers and commanders listened to the escaped human prisoner, who had somehow gained control of their most secure systems. For 3 years, you have been fighting a war based on false assumptions. Kim Woo continued. You believed that humans were primitive creatures who could be easily defeated through superior technology and military might. You captured our soldiers thinking they were valuable prisoners who would reveal our secrets, but every human you captured was actually a volunteer intelligence operative who was following carefully planned orders. We deliberately allowed ourselves to be taken prisoner because we knew that your interrogation methods and prison systems would teach us everything we needed to know about your capabilities. The revelation sent shock waves through the Union fleet, as commanders realized that their greatest victories had actually been defeats. Their most successful prisoner captures had been elaborate human intelligence operations. The data I am now transmitting contains complete technical specifications for every Union weapon system, detailed vulnerability analyses for all your ship designs, and comprehensive psychological profiles that explain exactly how to defeat each alien species in combat across the galaxy. Union officers watched in horror as their most classified secrets appeared on screens throughout their own facilities. The humans had not just gathered intelligence, they had analyzed it, organized it, and prepared it for immediate military use. But the most important thing I want you to understand, Kim Woo said, his voice filled with genuine warmth, is that this entire demonstration was not meant to humiliate you or cause unnecessary suffering. We could have used this information to launch surprise attacks that would have destroyed your fleets and killed millions of your people. Instead, we chose to reveal our capabilities openly and honestly because humans believe that even our enemies deserve to understand what they are really fighting against. Kim Woo paused to let his words sink in across the galaxy. This war can end today if you choose to accept that humanity is not the primitive species you believed us to be. We are offering you the chance to negotiate a fair peace based on mutual respect rather than the assumption that might makes right. The communication channel remained silent for long minutes as Union commanders absorbed the implications of what they had heard. Their technological advantages were gone, their strategic secrets were compromised, and their entire understanding of human capabilities had been proven completely wrong. Yet instead of using this overwhelming advantage to destroy them, the humans were offering peace. The choice is yours, Kim Woo concluded. But remember that every day you continue this war, you will be fighting an enemy who knows everything about you while you still know nothing about us. Kim Woo ended the transmission and began walking toward the shuttle bay with the satisfied expression of someone who had completed a difficult job perfectly. The message had been delivered, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Kim Woo's voice continued broadcasting across the Galactic Union fleet. But now there was something else in his tone that made every alien listener feel strangely uncomfortable. The same amusement that had puzzled his captors was returning, growing stronger and more infectious with each word he spoke. The funniest part about this entire situation, he said, and his laughter began echoing through communication systems on thousands of ships, is that you still do not understand the most important lesson we have been trying to teach you. Commander Tail was no longer trying to regain control of his communication systems. He stood frozen before the monitors, watching as his understanding of warfare crumbled around him. The technical skill, the strategic planning, and the sheer audacity of what this human had accomplished was beyond anything he had thought possible. You think this demonstration was about showing you our military capabilities? Kim Woo continued, his laughter growing more delighted. You think we wanted to prove that we could escape from your prisons, defeat your soldiers, and steal your secrets? But that was never the real point of this exercise. On security feeds throughout the Union fleet, alien commanders could see Kim Woo walking calmly through the corridors of their most advanced warship. He moved with complete confidence, as if he owned the vessel, and everyone aboard it was working for him. The real lesson, Kim Woo explained between bursts of genuine amusement, is that humans do not want to be your enemies. We never wanted this war in the first place. We have been trying to show you that cooperation is more beneficial than conquest. But you insisted on viewing everything through the lens of military dominance. The laughter was becoming strangely compelling. Despite the serious nature of the situation, many young alien crew members found themselves smiling along with the human voice. The sound of joy was infectious, crossing species barriers in ways that formal diplomacy never could. Do you want to know why I am laughing so hard? Kim Woo asked, as if he could sense the confusion his behavior was causing throughout the galaxy. I am laughing because you put me in a cage thinking it would break my spirit. But you did not realize that humans have been turning prisons into schools for our entire history. Every screen throughout the Union fleet displayed images of human achievements that the aliens had never seen before, universities that had been built from former military fortresses, hospitals that had been constructed in abandoned weapons factories, parks and gardens that had grown in the ruins of ancient battlefields. We do not just escape from the things that confine us, Kim Woo continued with obvious pride. We transform them into something better. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years, turning every obstacle into an opportunity and every defeat into a lesson that makes us stronger. The images showed human cities that had been rebuilt after devastating wars, looking more beautiful than they had before the destruction, human communities that had emerged from the worst disasters in their history, more united and determined than ever before. And now Kim Woo announced cheerfully, "I am going to show you what humans do when we are finished learning from our teachers." The communication systems throughout the Union fleet suddenly filled with new information, but this data was completely different from the military intelligence that had been transmitted earlier. Instead of weapon specifications and tactical analyses, the aliens were seeing human art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries. This is what humanity has been working on while you thought we were just fighting. For survival, Kim Woo explained. We have been building a civilization based on creativity, cooperation, and the belief that every species in the galaxy has something valuable to contribute to our shared future. The displays showed human settlements on distant worlds where different alien species lived and worked together as equals, human scientists collaborating with alien researchers to solve problems that neither could handle alone. Human artists creating beauty that incorporated design. Elements from dozens of different cultures. We have been preparing for peace while you have been planning for war, Kim Woo continued. We have been developing technologies and social systems that could benefit every species in the galaxy if you would. Stop trying to conquer us long enough to listen. Commander Tails stared at the images flooding his screens and realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. They were not primitive warriors fighting desperately for survival. They were builders and dreamers who had been trying to create something magnificent while defending themselves from aggressive neighbors. The laughter that followed was heard on every Union ship in the sector, but now the aliens understood what they were hearing. It was not the cruel mockery of a victorious enemy. It was the joyful celebration of someone who had finally found a way to share good news with friends who had been too busy fighting to listen. So thank you, Commander. Tail Kim. Woo said, his voice warm with genuine gratitude. Thank you for capturing me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to demonstrate that humans do not just escape from prisons. We turn them into classrooms where we learn everything we need to know about building a better future. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the gentle authority of someone offering a gift that could change everything. The war is over if you want it to be. We have shown you that we cannot be conquered, but we have also shown you that we do not want to conquer you. We want to build something together that will be more amazing than anything either of our species could create alone. Kim Woo reached the shuttle bay, but instead of immediately departing, he turned to face the security camera one final time. His expression was peaceful and filled with hope. "The choice is yours," he said simply. "We can continue fighting until one of us destroys the other, or we can start building the galaxy that our children deserve to inherit." The human entered his escape shuttle and launched into space, but his laughter continued echoing through the Union communication systems long after he was gone. It was a sound that would be remembered across the galaxy as the moment when warfare gave way to something better. On thousands of ships in hundreds of star systems, alien commanders looked at each other and began to ask the same question. If humans could turn A